Let me tell you the truth that no one on Reddit is saying. The LSAT is not about doing more, it's about doing better. Back when I started studying for the LSAT, I made the same mistake nearly every student makes. I thought the key was volume. I figured that if I just took enough prep tests, if I just hammered away for enough hours, eventually my score would magically rise. It had to, right? Like somehow the repetition would drill the LSAT into my brain. So I did what felt productive. I printed out full exams, I timed myself, I even built a spreadsheet to track my scores like I was a Wall Street analyst, charting every jump, every dip, and every bubble I filled in wrong. And guess what happened? Nothing. My scores hovered in the low 150s for weeks, then for months. I'd get excited when I scored a 155 and get discouraged when I dropped down to a 149, but the average showed I was still stuck. And here's why. The LSAT isn't a game of effort. It's a game of pattern recognition, because you're not just solving problems, you're being tested on whether you can identify logical patterns quickly, accurately, and under pressure. And what I was doing, blindly taking full-length exams without changing my approach, was like going to the gym and lifting the same 10-pound dumbbells every day, hoping I'd suddenly wake up ripped. That does not work in fitness, and it doesn't work on the LSAT either. So I changed one single thing, and that one thing changed everything for me. Instead of focusing on doing more questions, I started focusing on understanding why I got each question wrong. Not by reading someone else's explanation, not by looking it up online. I started by writing out my own explanations, in my own words, for every single wrong answer I chose. At first, it was kind of clunky. I didn't really know what to write, and I second-guessed myself a ton. I was used to immediately checking the answer key or Googling for help, but this was different. This time, I didn't let myself look up anything. I'd stare at the question, I'd read it again, and I'd force myself to answer 3 key things. First, why did I pick the wrong answer? Second, what was tempting about it? And third, why is the right answer actually right, even if I hate the way it's written? Let me walk you through why this works so well. When you get a question wrong and immediately read someone else's explanation, your brain goes, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," and then you move on. But you haven't actually done any real work. You haven't truly understood the mistake. You've just recognized someone else's reasoning. That's like watching a chess grandmaster explain a move and thinking that you could do it too. You can't. Not unless you understand the reasoning behind it and train yourself to see it when it's disguised. But when you force yourself to write out your own explanation, when you explain your wrong thinking, break down what tripped you up, and you argue with yourself, you're not just memorizing answers, you're rewiring how you think. And the LSAT is a test of how you think. This approach, the habit of writing out your own explanations, is what eventually became the Socratic review method. Here's what it looks like in practice. Let's say you fall for a tempting wrong answer. You write out what specifically made it attractive, what assumption did you make to justify it, and did the wording sound familiar from a prior question, and maybe you let that bias you. Now you look at the correct answer. What made it seem wrong at first? Was it too abstract, too vague? Did it contain unfamiliar terminology? And what made you reject it? And was that reason logically valid? When you do that over and over, patterns start to emerge. You begin to see that you're not making 50 different mistakes, you're making the same 3 to 5 types of mistakes over and over, just wearing different outfits. Maybe you're prone to overvaluing extreme language, or maybe you always fall for answer choices that restate part of the passage without addressing the core question. Or maybe you hate abstract phrasing and avoid it even when it's right. Once you spot your unique traps, you can then begin to avoid them. You'll recognize the bait and you'll stop taking it. And this matters more than you think, because the LSAT isn't just about getting questions right. It's about not getting them wrong for the wrong reasons. The more you can avoid your personal bad habits, the higher your score goes, often without needing to learn anything new. Now, here's a real example from my own prep. I kept missing questions involving conditional logic, specifically contrapositives. I thought I understood them. I'd read the theory. I'd even done flashcards, but I was getting them wrong again and again. And it wasn't until I wrote out my thought process that I saw the pattern. Every time I translated a conditional statement, I was messing up the reversal or the negation, or I'd make an assumption about sufficiency when I should have been thinking about necessity. Once I diagnosed that, I drilled it. I reviewed my mistakes. I wrote new explanations for each variation. And that section, once a weakness, then became a strength. That is how you break through plateaus, not with more volume of questions, but with better analysis. You don't need to do more, you just need to do it differently. So if you're scoring in the 150s or maybe the 160s and you're feeling stuck, you don't need another book. You don't need more full exams. You've got to look inward. You've got to examine your own reasoning like a scientist examining data from an experiment. Every single wrong answer is a clue. It's a signal. It's a message from the test makers showing you where your thinking diverged from the logic of the question. And if you ignore it, you're going to stay stuck. But if you study it, you're going to improve. This is the work. It's the kind of work that pays off big time. And that's how I went from a 152 to a 175. It wasn't overnight. It was not with some secret hack, but it was by developing the discipline to study my mistakes at a level most people never do. And once I started doing that, the game changed.